Chapter 1, Mishnah 10. The chapter ends with various laws related to capital cases. The Mishnah first discusses a person who escaped after being sentenced to execution for committing a murder. The case is where a person was convicted in a court outside of Eretz Yisrael. He then escaped and was brought back to the same court which had moved to Eretz Yisrael. If someone was sentenced to death in a court outside Eretz Yisrael and ran away before his execution, and he was caught and brought back in front of the same court that had convicted him, but the court had now moved to Eretz Yisrael, nevertheless, the judges do not reconsider his sentence to try and find a new reason to acquit him. Rather, they execute him right away. They do not have to reopen his case, because they are the ones who convicted him and will not likely change their decision. However, if the condemned man is brought to a different court in Eretz Yisrael, they do reopen his case, because being in Eretz Yisrael brings merit to a person, and this merit might cause the judges to find a way to pardon him. The Mishnah now states the law when the criminal is recaptured and brought to a different court outside of Eretz Yisrael. Wherever a convicted murderer is recaptured and brought to a court outside of Eretz Yisrael, and two witnesses stand up and say, "We testify that so-and-so was sentenced to die in the court of so-and-so, and the witnesses who convicted him were so-and-so and so-and-so," the defendant is killed right away based on the other court's verdict. The second court does not have to judge the case themselves. In this case, he has no extra merit, and therefore there is no reason to assume that this court will come to a different decision than the first court did. Capital cases were judged by courts known as Sanhedrin. That consisted of 23 judges, the Mishnah teaches. The Sanhedrin functions both in Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael. These courts were located in every city in Eretz Yisrael, as well as in places throughout other countries. And the judges on these courts had the authority to carry out capital punishment in every place. Although the Torah prescribes the death sentence for a number of crimes, there is a mitzvah for the court to try its hardest to find ways to pardon criminals and avoid putting them to death. So much so that the Mishnah notes, a Sanhedrin that kills someone once in every 7 years is called a destroyer. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, a Sanhedrin should not give the death penalty more than once in 70 years. Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva say, if we would have been on a Sanhedrin when they were judging capital cases, no person would ever have been executed. We would have asked the witnesses questions that they would not be able to answer, which would make their testimony invalid, and thus the accused would not be put to death. Another Tana rejects this practice. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says they too would have increased the number of murderers among the Jewish people. If murderers would never be put to death, people would not be afraid to commit murder. Therefore, although we try not to carry out the death penalty too often, we do carry it out when necessary.